are a little feisty. They asked me to move out the way so that Lewis could come through. In fact, they cleared a whole little gangway for him, and he's got security on either side of him. Conversely, Max Verstappen just sort of slunk out of his Red Bull hospitality, found a hidden door, which is pretty cool, in the side of the Red Bull walling on the right-hand side of the paddock, and then, without much pomp and ceremony, walked straight into the paddock. Such contrasting characters, but I love it. It's all the razzle-dazzle of Formula One. Sessions about to get underway. We do have some power unit announcements incoming. We think Alonso's going to get a 5-place grid penalty. Leclerc as well, due another penalty this weekend, which could kind of put pay to him starting on pole position, I suppose. But let's see what happens. The clock is about 30 seconds in, so Jack Nicholls, a perfect opportunity to let people sync up.
Absolutely. Looking forward to this 1 hour because, as you say, we didn't really get a huge amount of learning yesterday, to be brutally honest. We saw both Ferraris top each session. Sainz in practice 1, Leclerc in practice 2. Both did a 1 minute 36.8. Both were on the soft tyre, but we didn't really see a huge amount of quick running and representative running. So that will change today as the cars pull out of the pit lane. Straight out goes the Aston Martin, and Leclerc is just about to pull out as well. Add some barbecue flavour, it says on the top of his helmet. Is that a sponsorship thing, or is that just what he's decided to put on top of his helmet? I can't quite work that out.
His advice to the restaurateurs of the world.
So what,
maybe.
What Charles Leclerc is suggesting to Austin restaurants, put some barbecue on it, mate.
It could be. It could be. He's been...
So positive on the brakes, no low pressure.
Lewis Hamilton was at the LA versus Denver Broncos NFL match at the weekend. The Broncos lost. 59 minutes and 21 seconds. 20, 19, 18 seconds on the clock. It's the only NFL knowledge you're going to get from me. I just happen to be watching the match, so that's the only reason I've got that in my locker. As Vettel and Stroll are both out on circuit in the Aston Martins, Joe and Bottas for Alfa Romeo, Gasly in the AlphaTauri, Perez in the Red Bull, Sainz in the Ferrari. Some news that came out this morning is that Logan Sargent, if he gets the required amount of super license points, will be racing for Williams next year. That is what Jost Capito said in the press conference a little bit earlier on. So, and we had a big old chat about Logan Sargent yesterday, but an American driver joining Formula One with a team that are hopefully on the upper a little bit, and a kid with a solid enough resume.
Yeah. What are your thoughts on him?
I think he's got a solid enough resume, and that's about the extent of my thoughts. Because when he's sort of done fine in all this. He's not done a Leclerc or a Piastri and lit everything up, but he's always been, you know, first, broadly speaking, rookie year, fine. Second year in the series, kind of in the championship contention. He was in championship contention with Piastri when they were racing together. So, yeah, decent enough. Deserves a shot in F1, in my opinion. Jenny Gao?
I think everyone's... I find this strange, right? Everybody was talking about Colton Herta potentially joining and coming in, and wasn't it great that we could have an American coming to Formula One? Logan Sargent is a bona fide American, and yet there's not... okay, he might not be quite the same level as...
So still need to sink 7th and 8th. There's a big gust of tailwind into 11 there.
...on to play the game, and look, we've got 3 races in America next year. It is clearly this is hallowed ground for Formula One. They want to break turf here, and I feel like they've done more than that, and an American driver is the cherry on the cake.
Well, I think the difference is, yeah, it's cool that there's an American driver coming in, but a rookie coming in at Williams is a little bit different to like a really exciting IndyCar racer coming in at Red Bull. So I think one has a bit more maybe pizzazz with Herta, but looking at junior Formula, honestly, you could argue that Herta and Sargent similar sort of vibes.
Do we particularly care about the nationality of drivers coming in? I know the Formula One teams do, because the business and the sponsorship, and we've now got 3 races in the States. So
I love a home hero. I love a home hero. I love Mexico City and everybody going nuts for Mexico City. I loved Perez. I loved Zandvoort and the atmosphere there for Max Verstappen. So actually, I think, yeah, it's tremendous. Andrew Benson, the BBC's chief F1 writer, is of course with us.
I think what's interesting is that for many, many years, it was perceived to be the case that Formula 1 couldn't break America.
Oh, this is
unless
interesting. This is interesting.
It had an American driver. Thank you. But now it's broken America, and it doesn't have an American driver, despite the fact it doesn't have an American driver. So, of course, an American driver is going to probably only increase interest. But I guess it just goes to show that if the spectacle is right, and it's sold in the right way, and you can capture people's imaginations, then maybe the nationality of the driver doesn't matter too much. Of course, British fans, the majority of British fans are going to love Lewis Hamilton, and the majority of Dutch fans, as we've seen, love Max Verstappen, an overwhelming majority. But there are plenty of British people who love Charles Leclerc, for example, or Spanish people who love Lewis Hamilton as much as Fernando Alonso. So, you know, I think both things are true.
Yeah, because it's not, broadly speaking, Formula One isn't as nationalistic, is that the right word, as something like a football or something like that.
Well, it's not a nation's competition, is it? That's the whole point.
Yeah,
Football
correct.
Or rugby or whatever.
And I think, Palmer, you've said in the past, you wouldn't... I'm just trying to phrase this so it's not meant to come across offensively, but, like, I think you've said in the past, where's the effect of, you know, the national anthem on the podiums is kind of irrelevant. For because you're not racing for your country, you're racing for your team.
Yeah, but it's still nice. I was honoured to have the national anthem on the podium. But
How was the lap?
So Valtteri did a 39.0 for your reference.
Being lost?
So main time was 4.56. Turn 11 was good, and then margin to improve turn 15.
if England ever win the World Cup again, then it's very much they do it for their country. And that's the difference with Formula One. It's similar with tennis.
Yeah.
With individual sports, you're not representing your country unless it's sort of Olympics.
Do they do a national anthem for tennis? When Federer wins Wimbledon, I don't think they do a national anthem, do they?
No. It's old tradition in Formula One, and I like it. It's a nice touch on the podium, hear your national anthem, and it's just a moment to be very proud of achieving a great result that I'm sure your compatriots could be happy with as well. But it's not why you go out there and do it. I think it's probably, I do agree, it's nice to have home heroes, though, across the board. Would we get excited if there was a Hungarian driver coming on to really spice up the Hungarian Grand Prix next year?
Budapest went nuts for Zolt Baumgartner. Actually, Budapest used to go wild for Norbert Michelis. Was that his name? Norbert Michelis?
In World Touring Cars.
In World Touring Cars, yeah.
Yeah. Sargent is he's had a good year in Formula 2. His first year, really, in Formula 2. Average qualifying about 5th, yeah. It's all right. He's won a couple of feature races. That's pretty good.
I'm impressed you've got average qualifying positions for Formula 2 drivers this year.
Andrew, I do the research across the board. Would you expect me to come on air and not know all the facts?
Mick Schumacher slowing as he comes out of the final corner. Leclerc and Verstappen have just come across the line to do their first timed laps, and they are basically separated by less than a tenth of a second. A 37.4 for Leclerc, a 37.5 for Verstappen. They're both now on.
What tires Verstappen is on?
Verstappen soft, Perez soft. The first one with medium is Sainz, and he did 38.6. And for turn 11, consider one less downshift.
Yep, it was planned. Actually, let's stop and let's do a +5 front wing.
Copy, +5.
To the final corner or something, and he's just cruising around, and he's going too slow for a straight line speed test, a constant speed test.
Okay, I count logs.
Yeah, understood. Just go slow for now and get feedback. Watch cars behind.
I can't box, says Schumacher. Presumably he said that because he's just gone past it.
Yeah, so he's got an issue. He's just gone past the pits, and then he's now slowing and doing a very, very trundling run back to the pits. Going to get a replay on board with Mick.
Okay, I count dogs.
Yeah, understood. Just go slow for now and get feedback. Watch cars behind.
Corner just as he passed pit lane entry, kind of lost all drive, but he's managed to get some drive back now.
He changed gear as well as we were riding on board with him trundling back, so he should be able to get that back to the garage, I think. But for Haas, it's not good. They've already missed a load of mileage with Giovinazzi's crash in FP1 in the other really relevant session with the Pirelli tyre testing in FP2, not the tyres that we're going to run through the rest of it. So they could do with some more mileage for their two cars. Magnussen's out there on the mediums, and Schumacher is still circulating very slowly, trying to get back.
Sergio Perez has gone third quickest, a tenth away from Charles Leclerc, and then Carlos Sainz is fourth, but he's on the medium tyre, so he is a couple of tenths away, but on the medium compound tyre for Carlos Sainz. Esteban Ocon is fifth. George Russell has just jumped up into sixth place.
Charge on. Cool down lap.
Yeah, all turns and box and red flag change.
Copy that.
Soft tyres, and I can tell you what, the wind's whipping up down here again. I would suggest it's even stronger than yesterday at times. The flag, which is so tall just as you go down to turn one, and I realise I'm standing in the way of George Russell when he's going to come in, so I'll move, is whipping around as well. It's a good gauge actually for the drivers. They can look up and really get an idea of what's going on with the wind and what they're going to experience in the cars. But I have to say, Phil Hill, as Mick Schumacher makes his way in, and actually that car doesn't sound horrific anymore. Maybe he's found a little bit of something. But yeah, Phil Hill looks absolutely resplendent. That's the banking on the right-hand side as you go up to turn one. And there are thousands of fans standing or sitting in the grandstand there, watching on the track action. What a great place to watch Formula One. And the sun is shining down. It's just glorious, but so busy.
Yeah, producer Paddy and I were thinking of getting some food from Phil Hill in between FP and Quali, but it's going to be a long queue.
Should it be called Phil Hill Hill?
I don't like that name, Phil Hill. I mean,
you don't like Phil Hill?
No, I met Phil Hill. In fact, I had lunch with him once.
Oh.
He was a very nice chap.
Did you say I don't like your name?
No, I don't like that name for that thing.
You want to take that up with his parents?
Do you like Henman Hill?
That's different, isn't it?
Well, obviously.
We know what we need to do to fix it. Maybe it's just a quick 15 minutes and we'll get back out.
So Schumacher, they know what they need to do to fix it. Perez goes to the top of the times on a 37.338. Actually, also what I'll do before I just find out all the official names, because if I look out the window, it did yesterday. If they picked over it. Yesterday it said the Andretti out of the final corner on.
Okay, recharge on. So clear from traffic behind. How is the balance?
Front was not too bad, I think. It's a little bit bouncy. Exit of 13.
Okay, copy that. See a few snaps on the exit, which we think are probably wind related. Yeah. Would you like a flap adjust for the next lap?
I think we're alright.
Okay, very good.
Verstappen is 3 tenths quicker than Leclerc in the first sector, and he's quicker in the second sector. So Leclerc comes through to do a 37.083. Verstappen comes around now, out across the line, and he goes quicker on a 36.706. So that's the fastest time of the weekend. 3 tenths Verstappen's advantage over Charles Leclerc. Leclerc quickest in the final sector. Verstappen quicker in sectors 1 and 2. Verstappen now 6 tenths ahead of Sergio Perez. They're both 9 tenths ahead of Carlos Sainz, but he hasn't done a second lap, and he's on the medium tyre. Ocon 5th, Russell 6th. Bottas, Joe and Magnussen still the 9 drivers out there at the moment. Stu G says we should scrap the national anthems on the podium and use individual tunes for each team. So Red Bulls could be Hey Big Spender, for instance, which is nice and amusing. Well, Benson, we'll cover this off. We'll just get this out of the way. Cost cap, blah, blah, blah.
Cost cap, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, we had a press conference this morning, which Christian Horner was in. He's not a happy man, as you can imagine, after Zach Brown, the McLaren chief executive's letter that we published on Monday, accusing saying what Red Bull had done was constituted cheating. Horner's accused their rivals of waging a concerted campaign for a draconian penalty against Red Bull for breaching the budget cap. They're still in talks with the FIA, Red Bull, and they say they want to get it resolved soon, but we don't know whether it's going to be.
Christian Horner spoke to Jenny Gow a little earlier on today, and he said this. Oh, producer Paddy. Are we ready yet? No? Should we? Let's hear from Christian Horner. Nah, I'm giving up. 46
Well,
minutes.
look, we're in a process. I think we all want it concluded as quickly as we can. You know, otherwise it risks dragging on for months, and I don't think that's healthy for Formula One. It's not healthy for certainly our team, and it's a brand new set of regulations. There's always going to be a degree of subjectivity to it, and I'm hopeful that we can conclude it in the near future.
It's understandable that this is quite emotional as a subject for the whole of your team. What is?
Okay, do you want to rebal, or should we get on with some high fuel?
I think we get on with high fuel. I struggle for a bit of rotation in the low speed, apart from turn 1, where I just don't find any grip into turn 1.
Okay, copy. How is the high speed, stability through the high speed?
Yeah, it's good. It's mainly the low speed.
Okay, so you can take a step of mechanical question?
Not in the high speed. I think in the low speed I can.
Okay, understood.
You know, in the world that we live in today, it's not right. And when I see the impact that it has on the members of the team, that, you know, quite frankly, have worked their butts off, you know, this year, and you know, it's deep rooted. And you know, in an age where we talk about mental health, this is having an absolute effect on some of our members of staff. And when I hear of
and Lando, opportunity, change of direction between turn 5, turn 6.
that's not right, from, you know, because it feels like we're being tried by the media without, you know, not a single fact has been placed on the table yet, either by the FIA or Red Bull.
I mean, so I'm suggesting it's not the media that's actually trying you, it's the paddock and the fans.
Yes, but unfortunately they're feeding you, and unfortunately we live in a world where everything is, you know, so instantaneously accessible. And you know, there's the old adage: you go the higher you rise, the sharper the knives. And you know, in this sport, in this paddock in particular, you know, it's just a concerted effort to try and damage, you know, the team, and that's what I find is unacceptable.
So my understanding is the admission of guilt is actually quite a contentious subject. It seems like you're damned if you do, damned if you don't. You either take it further and risk more punishment, or you agree that you're guilty, which you've said you never wanted to do in the first place. So what is the option that is the best option for you and for Red Bull?
I think transparency. I think that we need to find a conclusion with the FIA. They're in the first year of a complicated set of regulations. I think they're doing the best that they can. You know, let's go through this process. That are the rules, and I think there'll be many lessons on all sides to learn from it.
So that was Christian Horner speaking a little bit earlier on, and I mean, what I would suggest, Andrew, guilty until proven innocent is kind of how Red Bull feel they're being treated.
That's what he's saying, yeah. But they have been found guilty already. Let's bear that in mind.
Yeah.
The FIA have said they broke the cost cap.
Tyres, the softy's only there for 1 lap, but yeah, I'll try to improve that.
Copy, understood.
The softy's only there for 1 lap, but yeah, I'll try to improve that.
Copy, understood.
Leclerc saying the soft tyres are only there for 1 lap. While we were listening to Horner, by the way, Sainz jumped up into second place in the Ferrari on the medium tyre to a 1 minute 36.894. But yeah, so why don't the FIA just say the punishment?
Well, it's kind of it's part of the financial regulations. On the particular accusations that Horner's levelling to his rivals, and what he's referring to Zach Brown there, and also Toto Wolff, who was very angry about, Horner was very angry about an interview that Wolff gave in Singapore, I think I know Mercedes, for example, find that a bit hypocritical of Horner, given all the accusations he levelled at Mercedes in the course of last year about flexible rear wings and engine performance and all the rest of it. But it's at the end of the day, that sort of stuff is all part of the sort of classic.
So the track does look a bit slower than yesterday. The fastest is now Verstappen, 36.7. Alonso's just done a 37.4. Ocon 38.1. Lando 38.9. I suspect it's either reset a bit or more wind.
Okay.
We just want to race, and this whole you're unacceptable, no, you're unacceptable, it should be just like let the FIA get on with it, and then
it wouldn't get as much airtime if the championship battle was intense and still going on this year. I think.
Do you think?
It would
I'm
still.
not sure about
the
that.
meaning would still be. I think the meaning would still be there. It doesn't change the effect. But Verstappen's won the championship. It's the big storyline, isn't it? That this grey area is there. That's a breach of some sort by Red Bull. But if we could still talk about a championship, Leclerc crosses the line now, goes second, half a tenth behind Max Verstappen.
Okay. Something's wrong with the brake pedal.
Copy.
Verstappen and Leclerc this year, it wouldn't get quite as many headlines, I think, the cost cap as it is.
The reason, here's some Ricardo radio.
Okay. Something's wrong with the brake pedal.
Copy.
So Ricardo saying something's wrong with the brake pedal as he came down into turn 12 and is now slowly getting off the line and out of the way of everybody else. So we'll see if Ricardo pits at the end of this lap.
So the reason this is such a big story is that the budget cap was only introduced last year. Last year's championship was incredibly close, as we know. It was decided in contentious circumstances at the final race of the year. And this year's championship is not close in terms of car performance. Red Bull have the best car in the field, at least in terms of race pace. Red Bull's rivals look at that and they say, if they've overspent by $2 million, say, that
was some snap there in turn 5-6.
Okay, copy.
The design of this year's car. And it's, if assuming the FIA have got their sums right, they've broken the rules on that front, and their rivals think they've benefited from that. And if that's what the financial numbers are, some teams would contend that that's enough to make this some more radio from Ricardo.
Daniel, everything looks normal in data on brakes.
Okay. Yeah.
Can you give any more information?
It feels like it's like really stiff, like it's at the end of travel, and there's no bite.
Ricardo reporting on his braking problems. He's now back in the garage.
That's enough to make the difference between winning a championship or not when it's as close as it was last year, people would say. I spoke to someone very senior within Formula One this morning.
Daniel, everything looks normal in data on brakes.
Okay. Yeah.
Can you give any more information?
It feels like it's just like really stiff, like it's at the end of travel, and there's no bite.
I never doubted that, to be clear. But that is the only story right now.
Yeah.
That's my point.
Yeah. 37 minutes and 50 seconds on the clock. Verstappen is back out on circuit on the set of softs that he's already done a couple of runs on. He's done a 36.706. As Jolyon said, 500ths quicker than Charles Leclerc in the Ferrari, a 10th quicker than Sainz on the mediums. Perez is in 4th in the Red Bull, 5th is Alonso, and Ocon, his teammate, is 6th. Stroll is 7th, Russell 8th, Vettel 9th, Hamilton 10th, Bottas, Tsunoda, Norris, Albon and Ricciardo, the top 15. Magnussen, Joe, Latifi, Gasly and Schumacher, the 20 drivers. Although having said that, Gasly and Schumacher haven't done a lap. We heard Schumacher's problems earlier on. Gasly must also have problems, I would suspect, although Tsunoda has only just done his first lap of the session, so maybe Gasly will be heading out soon. But no, he did an install lap, so we'll keep an eye on Gasly. Jenny.
Gasly has just rolled out of his garage. You spoke about it, and there he is, going up the hill, taking the left-hand turn and back down a little bit as well. So he's now out for AlphaTauri. Just a note on the engine penalties. They are accruing. Fernando Alonso's taken another internal combustion engine his 5th of the season, as has Charles Leclerc, so they'll both pick up penalties. Leclerc also using a 5th turbo charge of the season as well. Ferrari think they might have got some reliability and gremlins sorted for this upgrade, so they're taking the hit here, give them a bit more power, and they think that they can run that car a lot more aggressively without the reliability issues that they've faced so far this season when they've tried to turn the wick up. So that's potentially very positive for them.
What's a shame is they actually look pretty quick right now, Ferrari. Verstappen's at the top of the times, but Leclerc on the same tyre with a similar amount of laps is just half a tenth down, and Sainz, who then will lead the charge for them in qualifying later, is 1/10 down, but on the mediums. So it's looking pretty good right now for Ferrari to be right there on 1 lap pace with Max Verstappen as usual. Perez is 6/10 down on Verstappen, and Mercedes are yet to pop in a representative time. Russell comes through and improves on a soft tyre, but he's a second down on Verstappen. Hamilton is on an outlap, and he's only done 1 flyer so far.
Okay, so earlier this week, it was announced that Circuit of the Americas are naming Turn 20 the Andretti after Mario Andretti, and I'm sure I saw it on the tarmac in the runoff area yesterday, and now I feel like it's been painted over because I can't see it anymore.
Maybe it was painted in like a slippy paint, and the drivers all complained, and they had to remove it.
Or F1 are like, no, we don't want Andretti in Formula 1 still, so we'll scrub their name out. I saw Michael Andretti, in fact, both were here yesterday. Michael and Mario, I think, were wandering around yesterday.
I saw Mario this morning, yeah.
Oh, he's here as well again today?
I'd want a different corner, I think. I don't think if I'm Mario Andretti, American Formula 1 world champion, icon around these parts, I don't think the final corner through the parabolica. Yeah, but it's not the parabolica. It's a left-hander that you can get a bit of a slide on, as Fernando Alonso did massively yesterday. I think I'll go for maybe that quadruple apex right-hander.
So the multiple, so it would be the Palmers.
The Andrettis.
The Andrettis would be good.
And that would be very apt.
The Andrettis. So just to be clear, the reason Mario Andretti is here today is he's driving, I can't remember what year McLaren, but it's quite a modern McLaren, doing a demo run in it after this session.
So Alex, do you think you need another lap?
No, but into the tyres, no, but rhythm, yes.
12 car as well at the same time.
It wasn't the Senna one, because Pato O'Ward drove the Senna one, didn't he?
It's one of the more recent ones, I think.
Okay.
I think he still drives the IndyCar 2-seater.
Yeah.
Mario Andretti. And apparently gives it the beans when he gets in that as well with a passenger.
Didn't he drive the IndyCar 2-seater like through a city or something? I'm pretty sure I saw that once. Or I might have been watching Driven. I can't recall, but I'm pretty sure that happened.
Hamilton's on a lap finally in the Mercedes, comes through turn 19 in towards Andretti.
The Andretti.
Out of the Andretti, here comes Hamilton now. Can open the DRS, drive to the line, he goes to the top of the times. There we go, bit of pace for Mercedes.
But Perez has done the fastest middle sector of anyone. Pierre Gasly jumps up into 10th place. Perez is now coming into the Palmers, and then into the left-hander, obviously I can't name it that, and then the final left-hander at the Andretti, out across the line, and Perez goes quicker than Hamilton at 1 minute 36.578. This is getting interesting. Jenny Gow.
Yeah, just down at McLaren, they're working furiously on Daniel Ricciardo's car. He was reporting a problem with the brake pedal, so they've taken off the pedal shield and they're just having a look, hands down that little pocket that they're trying to adjust it, but at the moment he's stranded in the garage.
Nicholas Latifi in the Williams, just coming into turn 14, has had quite a big lock-up in the Williams. The front left locking as he came into that long left-hander that tightens and tightens. So Perez quickest, Hamilton second to 10th behind, then Verstappen and Leclerc. Those top four all separated by basically a quarter of a second. Sainz is 5th, only 3/10 away, but on the medium tyres still. Alonso is 6th, Vettel is 7th, Ocon is 8th, Stroll is 9th, Russell is 10th, and in the...
Trust, can we calm down? The pull toggle, that rear locking into 11 at the end of the late entry is killing me.
Yeah, understood.
He's doing a bit of a long run now, Max Verstappen. Outside the top 10, you've got Gasly in 11th, Bottas 12th, Tsunoda 13th, Norris 14th, Albon 15th, Ricciardo, Latifi, Magnussen and Joe, the 19 drivers to assess the lap time. Still no time yet for Schumacher, but this is a very interesting session, this. I'm enjoying this.
It's changing all the time, isn't it? The soft tyres play for everyone apart from Carlos Sainz and the two Haas cars. Schumacher still hasn't done anything since coming in for that issue. We heard it was going to be 15 minutes. That should be up about now, and Mick needs to get some laps in.
Jenny?
Yeah, just looking at Charles Leclerc, who's in the garage for Ferrari. He's still in the car. I can't help feeling a little bit disappointed that this weekend he'll have an engine penalty and he won't be starting on pole if he can set the fastest lap later on.
Was turn 12 any better?
Yeah, it was a little bit better.
What would happen, and feel like we're going to be denied that opportunity.
Yeah, potentially, although I'm still always just a bit sceptical about Mercedes, honestly. We see a lot of times you go, oh, maybe they're in the mix, and then it's not that often.
But sometimes they are.
Sometimes
on
they are.
like this.
True.
The races that they had a decent run. They could have won in Zandvoort. They could have won at Silverstone. Tracks with long, fast corners, akin to this one. And they were quite good in Paul Ricard.
And both drivers were quite optimistic yesterday after practice. I mean, they weren't predicting they were going to be on pole position, obviously, but they did feel they were going to be sort of not too far behind, thereabouts.
The crucial thing is going to be, can they qualify to get themselves in the mix? Because the race pace on all those ones I just listed is what brought them towards winning contention. But if they'd started from the front, okay, Russell did in Hungary, but it was Hamilton that was a bit quicker, starting from further back. If they could start in and amongst the Verstappens, they'll be obviously ahead of Leclerc, which will be a big boost for Hamilton and Russell. And then if they can start ahead of Perez as well, then they're right in the mix. And if their race pace is better than their qualifying pace like usual, Mercedes think this should be their best chance of winning probably for the rest of the season, and it surely will be.
Jenny?
Yeah, I spoke to one of the senior personnel at Mercedes as we were getting ready for this session. I said, how are you feeling? How's it going? He's like, yeah, feel pretty good. Yesterday was a good day. Let's just see how this car is going to disappoint us today. And there was a touch of irony. You know, they're quite light in what they say sometimes in Mercedes, which I appreciate. However, there is a real feeling of opportunity this weekend. They really want to capitalise on it. And if you look at race...
If you want to bring a bit more rotation in turn 11, turn 12, think about diff entry 5. Diff entry 5.
Yeah, can we add that to the handbrake?
Yeah, we'll get that lined up for the final run.
Not perfect Zandvoort, and I think they could have won that if they had have done with what we've come used to from Mercedes, from having that the years of championship domination and not putting many feet wrong. But they probably could have optimised it for a win in Zandvoort if they'd called the strategy right there. But generally, Ferrari are the team this year that are known for their strategy gaffes or mistakes in bizarre circumstances. Red Bull have been really strong overall. Verstappen had a bit of a shocker in Singapore qualifying, but their strategy's good, their pit stops are good, the driver is exceptional. Mercedes are the team that procedurally can match Red Bull. And of course, Perez has got a grid penalty as well. So they don't even need to out-qualify.
Kenny can go in, close the lap and go in. It's a good third lap considering the tire delta. A good improvement in this last sector. Just need to put it together on the first lap. That's good. Okay, so we'll go for the pit lane work now. You're clear behind.
Great in. 27 minutes and 50 seconds on the clock. Andrew Benson, what were you doing 16 years ago today?
I don't know. Why are you asking me that?
Fernando Alonso's second World Championship title. 16 years ago today. Here's Ricardo's radio.
Daniel, can you confirm you're happy with the brakes?
Yeah, I think it feels okay now.
Good.
Ricardo happy and out and about.
In which case I was watching that Grand Prix and writing about it.
Yeah.
Where was the party?
I don't know because I wasn't there. I was in broadcasting house, not broadcasting house. What was it? What did it used to be called? Television Centre.
Oh.
Daniel, can you confirm you're happy with the brakes?
Yeah, I think it feels okay now.
Good.
Alonso, and we had a big old chat about him yesterday, but the 16 years today is Crikey.
That's a barren spell, isn't it?
Yeah, isn't it just?
He's having a really good year, but an unlucky year overall, Fernando Alonso.
He said it was one of his best years this year.
Of course he did.
But
every race is one of his best races ever.
Yeah.
It's actually looking at objectively at the stats. He's been really fast. He's been pretty consistent. He's ahead of Ocon, but yet he's behind on the points because he has been extremely unlucky with reliability, with I think a couple of poor pit stops as well.
Hamilton at Spa.
Yeah, there's been a lot of things that have just been going against him. And so he may well be outscored by Ocon this year, but it just doesn't tell the picture at all of what's been.
ACS on, ACS.
Have been a little bit of a tough spot for him. The Montreal, he lost a few points because he was weaving and blocking Bottas on the final lap. Miami, he cut the chicane a couple of times. Suzuka, last time he got away with an absolute blatant cut of the chicane to come in for the pits off his wet tyres and saved about 3 seconds. There's always something with Fernando Alonso's race, but his actual raw performance is still there.
What is the record, I wonder, between World Championship titles? Who has that?
I think it's Niki Lauda, if I'm right, if I remember rightly.
What, from 77
to 84? Yeah. Alonso's not going to break it because he's not going to win another title, is he?
Right, whilst everyone's mostly in the pits, you're hearing Fernando Alonso on an outlap. He's about to wind something up on a soft tyre. Most of the front guys are in the pits. We're in a...
It's a bit of a mess, my heat.
Yeah, we'll come and sort that out.
Mercedes title in there as well, which follows 4 for Vettel in a Red Bull. And the feeling is that Red Bull, they could go on and make this another sequence. Why is this happening more now and not in the past, where you'd get some, but they'd always be broken up with other drivers? It was rare to have just the blocks that we're having. Vettel 4, bam. Then Hamilton 6, with a Rosberg 1 for Mercedes in there as well.
Were there? My question is this, Andrew: were there regulation changes more in the past? So, because I remember in 2002 and 3 and 4, it felt like always something quite major was changing, and McLaren would build a new car every year, and you wouldn't get new cars until the 4th race of the season or something. You'd start with last year's car, and all of that.
Suggest red mid 4. Red mid 4.
You happy with this strat?
This strat's good.
Just a constant development these days, where it felt like it was a new car all the time in the past.
I think you were talking about this yesterday, Jolien, and I think you nailed, or collectively yesterday, you two nailed what the answer is. And this is only speculation, because I don't know for sure what the answer is. One of you said that Formula 1's so perfect these days. That was you, Jack, yes. And they're so good at maximising everything. And the other thing is that I think it was you, Jolien, was talking about changes of regulations and people nailing the change of regulations when they come. And that's I think both of those things happened in all those scenarios you're talking about. The regulations changed for 2009. Okay, there was the Brawn thing with the double diffuser, but fundamentally, Red Bull nailed those 2009 regulations better than anyone else. And then exhaust blowing as well carried that on. Then Mercedes nailed the hybrid regulations, and then now Red Bull have nailed these new ground.
But this charge is up there, some soft. His charge has an issue, is now running on high fuel.
You keep that advantage because you've got the advantage, so you're building on that advantage year by year as you design your car. Yes, things get closer, but it's really hard to close that gap. And you don't get the uncertainty of results that you used to get in Formula 1 in the past with reliability and so on. And now you've got the budget cap, which ironically was set up to try and bring the field closer together. But here's some radio from Carlos Sainz.
But this charge is up there, some soft. His charge has an issue, is now running on high fuel.
Charles has an issue, he's not running on high fuel, I think was the message. Sainz was asking for the long run comparison with Leclerc, but Leclerc's still in the pits and helmet off and not going out.
No, most others I think are on long runs now. Fernando Alonso was on a lap on softs, but it was leery as anything and also quite slow.
So yeah, just to finish the point, the budget cap was meant to bring everybody closer together. It hasn't done that. It's made no difference to the field spread. And as Jost Capito, the Williams team principal, was saying in the news conference this morning, actually, now there's a budget cap, it's potentially, theoretically, actually harder to close the gap because you can't outspend anybody. Everyone's got the same resources. Well, they haven't actually. The top teams have still got more resources because they had the better resources before and they've still got them, even though they're operating on the same maximum amount of money. So it's going to be interesting to see how that pans out over the next few years. The thing that could make the difference is the aerodynamic research restrictions sliding scale, where the team who performs best in one championship gets the least amount of permitted aerodynamic research the following year. We'll have to see how that pans out over the next few years.
I'm excited by that, though. I think that has a real chance of being good and interesting and working. We'll see.
Russell just tried to get a soft tyre lap in as well and had a huge snap coming out of...
Okay, what's the pace compared to others, compared to Yuki?
So currently P11, on Yuki did a 38.15, your lap time 37.8.
Too hard on the throttle with some steering input in. I bring another point in.
Hamilton's on a really quick lap, by the way, so bring your point in, but just to be aware of that.
Yep. Personal best first sector for Hamilton and pushing through the middle on the softs. Drivers don't change teams as much as they did. So when you have a dominant driver that finds the dominant team, as the man you can hear now, Lewis Hamilton, has done at Mercedes, it's going to be a decade at Mercedes. Verstappen is going to be more than a decade at Red Bull with the contract that he's just signed.
Hamilton's backed off.
The soft tyres, they are going away quite a lot on the rear end. A lot of drivers are sliding about. Still, the Red Bulls in the garage, Sainz out there on the mediums on a long run, and Leclerc going nowhere. Yeah, I think the drivers, there's nowhere near the change of teams that you used to have, which makes a big difference to the pecking order.
Well, is that because that is the pecking order? And we've said so many times in the past, well, you know, for a Ricciardo, he's not going to get a seat at Red Bull or Mercedes, so what's the point in racing anymore? Whereas in the 80s, you could go to Alfa and maybe you'd be winning next year. You could go to McLaren maybe winning next year. Ferrari, Brabham, all of these teams, they could be winning next season.
Top teams have all learned a lesson of stability from Ferrari and Michael Schumacher in the 2000s. So that's why you've got the situation where Hamilton's locked in at Mercedes and Verstappen's locked in at Red Bull and Leclerc's locked in at Ferrari.
But Norris is locked in at McLaren. So
yeah, well, some people think that wasn't such a smart move for Norris, but
it doesn't. It looks like an interesting move for someone that might be one of the fastest drivers out there.
Who would have signed him? Because Mercedes are locked in with Hamilton and
Red Bull
are locked in.
Red Bull were interested in him for sure to go alongside Verstappen.
Stop on the marks, Daniel. You can practice stopping on the marks a bit harder than yesterday. Yesterday we were losing time there.
Lock in for a really long time with McLaren. It was an odd decision, I think, for Lando, whose stock value is absolutely through the roof right now with the way that he's just basically taken Daniel Ricciardo out of Formula One before he was thought to be ready for it. I just find it's one of those things where you look in the past and you think Schumacher was champion with Benetton, left Benetton to go to Ferrari whilst he was winning, and then that gave the Williams a couple of years to come in whilst Schumacher was building the Ferrari project. Alonso was champion with Renault and then went to McLaren whilst he was winning the championship, signed for McLaren whilst he was doing that. Ferrari had Michael Schumacher leading the team, went straight for Kimi Räikkönen. Now, once you've got a winning thing, there's just so much hesitancy to change the thing that you're onto.
Russell's coming through the final couple of corners. He's on a better lap this time after backing off previously. Comes through the Andretti, out across the line, and Russell goes 6th quickest, 4 tenths away from Sergio Perez. Those tyres are across the line he comes. They're fairly new, actually. That was his first run, apart from the one that he abandoned on that previous lap. So they were new tyres for Russell. But I don't need to get bogged down in this. We're going to go to Jenny in the pit lane, I promise. But Berger and Alesi must have been buzzing in '96 to be leaving Ferrari to join Benetton, who have just won the last 2 World Championships. They must have been buzzing. And then, well, they got a couple of wins. I don't think they won in '96. I think there was 1 win for Berger, maybe 2 in '97. They must have been out of their minds with excitement. They were going to win championships. Nothing happened. Jenny, go out.
Thank you so much. I patiently waited. I've just done a little tour of the pit lane as well. So Schumacher He was having issues earlier, wasn't he? What were the issues? Well, they're having to replace his ERS water pump and an electric control unit down there. Lando Norris, he's had issues as well. They've done a total reset, it looks like, on the front end suspension. They're just putting the covers back on the tyres at the moment, so it looks like he'll be heading out relatively soon. And then if I make my way up to Ferrari, Carlos Sainz just being pushed backwards into his garage. But on the other side, Charles Leclerc, number 16 car, is still in there, waiting to go out. It's been a very serene garage. He had his helmet propped up on the front of the car. But it looks like they've decided that soon is the time for action and they'll send him out. Remember, he has grid penalties because of 2 different bits of the power unit that's being replaced this weekend.
Hamilton's on another quick lap. Albon's just jumped up into 12th.
Heikki Kovalainen joined Renault to replace Fernando Alonso.
Let's prep for a make power change, please. Swap it up down rearwards.
In towards turn 11. A little bit deep, but he is on a belter at the moment. Fastest first sector, but he has lost a bit of time again in the hairpin. 2007 was all about Hamilton, the rookie at McLaren. Kovalainen was jumping into the champions seat.
Alongside who? Fisichella?
Fisichella's day.
No wins?
He had a podium in Fuji. Was the standout for Kovalainen.
1 Grand Prix win, I think, in
Hungary.
Whoa, big moment for Hamilton through turn 19, and as a result, well, I think he thought about going back to the pits, but then was a little bit too late to get back across. But Hamilton does not improve on that lap. Lots of famous Finnish sports people, actually. 15 minutes and 18 seconds on the clock. Big moment that for Hamilton.
Yeah, there's so many drivers struggling with the rear. It's windy, the temperature's quite high as well, and new soft tyres for Hamilton. And he just got a bit wide into 19, had a snap as he got out there as well. And the lap was already getting scruffy through the middle sector. And then the car just sort of bottomed out over the curb, over track limits. And he caught it, thought about coming into the pits, but stayed out there.
Huge shunt outside the media centre catering earlier on. One of the brollies got whipped up by the wind and was sent, what?
A parasol.
A parasol. 10 metres? Flying towards a group of
It was Mary
people.
Poppins without Mary Poppins, wasn't it?
Yeah, exactly. Quite remarkable stuff. Jenny Gow?
You can hear in the background Sergio Perez in the Red Bull heading out on a brand new set of soft tyres. Max Verstappen went out about a minute earlier, also on a set of brand new softs. So expect fast times are coming from the Red Bull boys.
14 minutes and 20 seconds to go. Bethany says, so in conclusion, we need to change the rules more, lower the spending, randomise the driver lineups, and randomise engine failures, and then everyone will be great. Pretty much. That's about it. 14 minutes and 5 seconds to go.
We are off the back of the best season Formula One's ever seen.
So and also, this will be a good season if Ferrari hadn't shot themselves in the foot so many times.
And if it was 22 races. If it was 14 races, this would be a season for the ages.
Yeah.
Bottas, 700ths down on Perez in the first sector. He's in the Alfa Romeo, and they are really struggling, I think, to keep hold of that 6th place in the championship. They're only 7 points clear of Aston Martin. They've scored 1 point since Canada of Alfa Romeo, which was a 10th place finish in Monza, I think, for Bottas, or was that might have been for Joe, actually, the 10th place in... no, it was for Bottas, the 10th place in Monza. So they are in a very, very bleak run of form. Jenny?
Yeah, just to let you know, Mick Schumacher's managed to get back out on track in the Haas. Norris has also gone out as well, so good news for both of them. And I think Leclerc's just pulled out the garage too.
It was 10th for Joe.
There's a lot of relocking into turn 11 as well still.
Yeah, copy. I think it's mainly the wind, isn't it, for now? But we'll have a look and see if there's anything else we can try. We just need a blue switch if we can.
Stroll 10th, Bottas on board coming through 19, now into the Andretti. Hooks up the apex nicely. This is looking a bit more planted at the rear end. Slight correction as he jumps on the gas, goes 7th. 7/10ths down. New set of boots there for Bottas in the Alfa Romeo, but not a shabby lap time.
1/10 quicker than the Aston Martin of Sebastian Vettel, who hasn't run again yet.
I think there will be a little bit of a late flurry with so many cars still in the pits. It's been a long break between the first set of lap times. Perez still at the top, and then we're going to get another load coming in soon. Little quiz question for you.
Yep.
What's the longest run of different drivers' champions in Formula One?
Oh,
how many and when?
Wow.
plus 10.
Some feedback on the high speed section would be good. Just
Sure.
that was obviously I was losing. Double cool, yeah?
Double cool
I think
plus
we should.
10. Yeah, double cool plus 10.
Ferrari winning 2, then you had Fangio winning 5.
I think 80s. I think 80 through 87.
No, because even then you had
Who won
PK and then
back-to-back?
PK 2 years later. And then you had Prost, Lauda won within 2 years of each other. There's not many at all.
75 to 82, that's my guess.
No, because Lauda won the second one in 77.
No, but not consecutive though. That's the thing.
No, he said,
Back-to-backs.
what's your rules? Because that's another.
Back-to-backs.
That's not a new champion.
How many different names in a row can you see on a list of champions?
I'm going. Yeah,
Niki Lauda doesn't count as a different name if he's won it twice, does he?
No, but
well,
in
you
a row.
can take one of Lauda's championships, but as soon as you hit a second one,
Yeah,
that's
so
the
you'd
end
have
of
to
the row.
start at 77.
Oh, so it's not in a row.
79.
This question makes no sense.
That might be the. That might.
It seems quite tricky out there.
Yeah, maybe pushing the braking zone a little bit too hard into turn 1.
Run.
It seems quite tricky out there.
Yeah, maybe pushing the braking zone a little bit too hard into turn 1.
Max Verstappen then is going a bit deep into turn 1 and has had to abandon the lap.
So I'll tell you now, there was 5 in 2006 onwards. Alonso, Raikkonen, Hamilton, Button, Vettel was 5, but you were both on the right track with 76.
Yeah.
James Hunt was the start of 7 different winners from 76.
So I think I got that right. I think I got that right.
7 different winners.
That's not really. You've broken your own rule there because you've already had a Lauda the year before.
I know, but you had a Hunt win, then a Lauda win, and then an Andretti win in there. You had a Scheckter win, you had a Rosberg win.
Alan Jones
took a win.
Who won 81? Nelson Piquet?
Piquet.
That's when it stopped in 83.
Yeah. So I got that answer right. I think I got that answer right. I'm pretty proud of myself. 9 minutes and 51 seconds on the clock. Now Verstappen is starting another flying lap here. Leclerc has gone out on a new set of tyres. He, for whatever reason, the team's saying can't do a long run, but he's doing another short run here. So is Max Verstappen. His personal best first sector. He's coming down now towards turn 11. Jane?
Yes, just in the pit lane, Lewis Hamilton's still waiting to go back out in the Mercedes. I think it shouldn't be too much longer, just doing a front wing dial change, so just changing the angle of that slightly. But I was just going to say the president of the FIA, Mohammed bin Sulayem, has just come into the pit lane to have a little look around. He's not really doing anything, he's just standing there a little bit far away from Mercedes.
That's a bold claim. We'll move on from that. Charles Leclerc has done a very quick first.
So you've still got 9 ahead to Russell, so take it easy, 16. Take more of a gap to Russell. There's a little bit of bunching, so take it easy now for the front left.
As they come now through the long quadruple right-hander, then flicking it left at turn 19, and then into the Andretti. And Verstappen is going to go to the top of the times, but Leclerc, historically, today and yesterday, has been quick in the final sector. A 36.223 for Max Verstappen. Leclerc now down through the gears, on the power again, coming out of 19, then into the Andretti, comes in front of the commentary box window and across the line, and Leclerc goes second. Oh, 100th slower than Verstappen. Not a personal best in the final sector, a bit scrappy out of the Andretti.
Very scrappy through the final 2 corners, was over track limits in turn 19, and then was fighting the rear of the car as well through turn 20. In fact, Verstappen's lap earlier on, everyone is struggling with them.
That is a very, very messy lap.
Yeah, understood.
And the soft tyres are really working, and then they're easily being overheated. So everyone's fighting oversteer. Verstappen was the same earlier on. Didn't look like the absolute tidiest of laps from him.
That is a very, very messy lap.
Yeah, understood.
That's Leclerc's feedback. Wind speed currently showing at 5 meters per second, which is fairly gusty, fairly quick as well. Normally you're looking at, I don't know, 1 or 2 meters per second.
Yeah, well, Parasol Gate, yeah, it was Verstappen's run over something as well, coming through the final corner, and then gone over track limits himself. But it is really windy. There's actually quite a lot of extra paraphernalia being blown onto the circuit. There was a carrier bag that was on there out of the Andretti earlier on. It's that sort of day where things are just being whipped up, and Formula One cars are not exempt.
Just to be clear about this parasol saga, it didn't actually land on anybody, right?
Like, pretty much.
It was close.
It was
yeah.
close.
Okay.
It was
They were fine. They were fine, but it was the talk of the three of us eating at catering at the time.
I've never seen anything quite like it.
I don't think I have either. And we've been around the block. 6 minutes and 41 seconds on the clock. Albert and Joe are the only two drivers in the pit lane at the moment. And Verstappen is quickest, Leclerc second, Perez third, Hamilton fourth, Sainz fifth, Russell, Bottas, Alonso, Norris, Vettel, the top 10.
It was that much of an incident that we had to wind down all the rest of the parasols for fear it might happen again. Here goes Sainz. On some soft tyres, he's run the mediums for a long time so far in this session. 6 minutes to go, on some softs, feeling some grip. Look nice and neat coming out of turn 1.
Why is Joe in the pits? Jenny?
He's only done 3 laps, I believe. They're investigating a cooling leak, which is taking its time, frustratingly for the team. They really need some clean weekends, and it's not going to be this one so far.
No, so frustration for Joe. Sainz through the first sector, 400ths down on Max Verstappen, climbs up the crest of turn 9, then through the kink left-hander at turn 10, onto the brakes now, into turn 11. Real sort of whistly whine from that Ferrari engine, isn't there, as he gets on the brakes and now makes his way down the back straight with 5.5 minutes on the clock. Hamilton is just starting a lap now as well. Comes through the first sector, and compared to Charles Leclerc, he is 100th away in sector 1. So this is a reasonable lap here from Hamilton. He's 700ths up on Verstappen in the first sector. Sainz has lost a couple of tenths now by the time he's reached the middle sector, but this is his first running on the soft tyre, as Jolyon mentioned a little bit earlier on. He's coming to the long sequence of right-handers now. Daniel was hit by a flying parasol once. I hope you're okay. Through the...
It's quite a balance. I've got a bit of understeer, the low speed, very neutral high speed.
Do you want to flap or set? We'll go for double cool.
Let's do -2 on the flap.
Okay, copy.
Final sector of anyone. Hamilton hasn't backed off. He's less than a tenth away from Verstappen after the first 2 sectors.
Yeah, still gunning for it is Hamilton. The zone you can hear now, fighting the car really hard into the to the tight left-hander at 15. Now he's coming through the quadruple apex. Flat out on the gas, down towards the final couple of corners. This is where he had a big slide earlier on. Planted through 19, down to the Andretti, the final corner. Just fighting the rear earlier on, but actually managed to hook up a nice final couple of corners, and he improves to go 4th. Personal best final sector for Hamilton, within 2 tenths of the pace. It's close out there. Verstappen at the top. Leclerc's just 100th down with a very, very messy lap of his own admission. Sainz, first lap on the soft is good, within half a tenth with the fastest final sector. And now Hamilton, 4th, within 2 tenths of the Mercedes.
Russell's the one not really hooking it up at the moment. 8 tenths away from Verstappen, and I don't think he's got a sort of run in. He did another run on a set of softs a few moments ago that only have had 7 laps on them. So we'll keep an eye out and see whether Russell goes out again on a new set of softs towards the end of the session. We haven't spoken about track limits this weekend because they're not deleting them in these practice sessions, but a lot of drivers have been doing track limits, haven't they? And that could be a thing in qualifying. Well, it will. I'm sure someone's going to get pinged in quali.
Yeah, it's been the norm now to not have them deleted in practice, but we do see them deleted then in qualifying. We saw it in Austria, in France, for even the most discreet of violations. So the driver's got to be a little bit careful about that. Vettel has done a lap in the Aston Martin and gone ahead of Bottas, whose time in the Alfa Romeo remains decent. 7th and 8th now for Vettel and Bottas. This is Daniel Ricciardo in the McLaren.
Are they getting better?
That's negative, Daniel. We think the front left is glazed, but we obviously don't have time to do anything now. You've got time for 2 more laps.
Daniel Ricciardo goes very wide at turn 19, so this isn't going to be a great lap for the McLaren man. But he comes across the line and goes up to 15th place. But the questions will now start to... And you mentioned it a bit with the facilities, but if McLaren are now spending as much as Red Bull and Ferrari and Mercedes, they've got to be closer, haven't they?
Well, they obviously the aim is to be closer. The problem is that, as I was saying earlier with the facilities, the top teams have a head start because they had the sort of A-star facilities to start with. McLaren, they admit themselves, haven't got that. They've got a new wind tunnel coming on stream, for example, which is going to be ready sort of middle of next year, and only after they've got a new wind tunnel can they then hope to compete with the top teams, I think. That's certainly their belief. So it's still going to take a bit of time, which is why Norris locked himself into that long-term contract. Actually, I think, and again, this is also in the cost cap, in the context of the cost cap saga, just very briefly, to underline why people take it so seriously. McLaren, I think, are still now feeling the effects of 2007. The Spygate saga, the $100 million fine that they had, everything that unravelled from McLaren unravelled from that point. Mercedes lost confidence in them. They lost investment. They found it harder to get sponsors. They were struggling for money, and then as we saw that decline that went on for the next 10 years, which they're only now beginning to come out of. So that's the sort of effect that falling foul of those sorts of things can have on a team.
I didn't realise the direct correlation there.
They nearly won the championship in 2010. They had maybe...
Need to be faster than the outlap on medium for reference. We are 10 seconds behind.
Had already started. They'd lost Mercedes as the works partner. Mercedes had set up their own team by then, so they'd lost the benefit of that. And so all those things started to slowly drop away, and they were able to maintain it for a while. But obviously, one of the reasons they didn't compete for the championship in 2012 was the car kept breaking, even though it was probably the fastest car. That was a consequence of this struggle for resources and so on, because of Mercedes' move to their own team. And then that carried on and by 2013 the effect was really starting to be felt. Then that was their first properly uncompetitive car, and they haven't had a fully competitive car since.
Verstappen has just gone to the top of the times, a 1 minute 35.825, 3 tenths quicker than Charles Leclerc. Leclerc improved on that last lap, but is slower than Verstappen. So Verstappen quicker than Leclerc by 3 tenths of a second. Sainz is third, 4 tenths.
Sorry for that. He came quite fast. Had nowhere to go.
No, Alonso has just been out of, I think that was by Perez in the Red Bull.
Sorry for that. He came quite fast. Had nowhere to go.
Perez apologising on the radio that Alonso arrived fast, but yeah, that's a last little flex at the last minute from Red Bull, isn't it?
There was a flurry of lap times. Alonso actually improved as well to go 6th ahead of Russell, who's had a tough session there, down in 7th and over a second off the pace. Not happy. Just as it was looking so close, Verstappen puts 3 tenths between himself and Leclerc, who's not going to be a factor in qualifying because of his engine penalty, where he might still qualify, but he's not going to be on pole. 4 tenths over Sainz. Perez also has a grid penalty, got up to 4th, half a second off his teammate though. Right at the end, Verstappen maybe just unleashing more potential out of that Red Bull.
So, checkered flag.
KS, man, look at this.
Yep, they're all over the place.
Coming left through turn 19, then up to the Andretti, onto the brakes, down into the 3rd gear, 60 miles an hour at the apex, out across the line, and Gasly goes into 10th position. So, Verstappen fastest, a 35.8. 3 tenths ahead of Charles Leclerc, 4 tenths to Carlos Sainz, half a second to Sergio Perez in 4th, 5th is Hamilton, 6th is Fernando Alonso in the Alpine, ahead of George Russell in 7th, Vettel and Stroll 8th and 9th, Gasly 10th. Bottas, Norris, Ocon, Magnussen, Ricciardo, the top 15. Tsunoda, Albon, Latifi, Schumacher and Zhou, the 20 drivers. Zhou only getting 3 laps in.
Good stuff. So that is practice done and dusted here at Circuit of the Americas. And I've just come out of the pit lane into the paddock and got a proper bit of fever, because they've got the cars that Zach Brown and Mario Andretti are going to be getting into in a couple of minutes to do their demo laps. And it's Hamilton's actual chassis and car from when he won here in 2012. And, you know, the silver, the really spangly McLaren that they had that year is back. And it's beautiful. And then that's alongside the car that Andretti will drive, which is a much more modern version of the McLaren with the current colour scheme all over it. But, Jolyon, they're great cars, aren't they? Oh.
Yeah, really. What a privilege for them to take those cars out on Grand Prix Saturday around this circuit. That's a perk of the job, isn't it, for Zach Brown to jump into Hamilton's race winning 2012.
Does a lot of racing, doesn't he, Zach Brown? Does a lot of historic racing. Did he compete? I think he competed in British GT. I think I might have commentated on him competing in British GT in 2011 for United Autosports.
I definitely interviewed him, Jack.
Yeah, I think that at Alton Park.
I was in the pit lane.
At Alton Park,
yeah.
Jen, I think. Yeah.
That's why if I was team principal or the boss of a Formula 1 team.
Okay, so procedures, Max. 2 burnouts, right-hand side launch, gear 1.
Era, Zodi and Palmer, what would it be?
Would I take? I think I'd maybe go for a Senna McLaren.
Yeah.
I think I'm going. Oh, I don't know actually.
The V12, McLaren Honda.
It's difficult to disagree with that. I like 70s F1 cars. They had a real bit of beef to them.
I'd also quite like to take Damon Hill's Williams out
96.
because that was the first time I grew up in Formula 1. Was watching in the mid-90s and Hill as the British driver winning was cheering him on. That would be quite a cool thing.
How about the mid-90s Lola MasterCard?
Right, I'm stopping you there. We've got a minute until the end of the programme, and unfortunately we've run out of time for that conversation.
Well,
but you guys carrying it on.
What's yours,
You guys
Jenny?
carrying it on. Yeah, it would definitely... Oh, meh.
Okay, we want to do pit stops on both cars. You're the lead car, so good pace on this in lap.
Would that work for you or not?
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
Yeah?
I don't know. I'm a bit.
It's the year I was born, you see.
Ah.
And Hunt, legendary British driver. Just goes together for me. Anyway, Max Verstappen just starting a practice grid run as he goes towards the top of the hill. And will he be able to get pole position later on today? That is the question.
Jordan 191. Sorry, that's what I decided. Jordan
Stuff.
191.
Make sure you come back because we've got plenty more chit chat. And let's face it, that's what you tune in for. This has been an IMG production for BBC Radio 5 Live. Qualifying gets underway at 11 o'clock. We will speak to you then.